Welcome to the first episode of the new Python with AI series. In this video, we're just going to go through an introduction to AI pair programming using a tool called Windsurf. So a common misconception regarding these AI tools is that the AI just does everything and there's no need for a programmer anymore, a human programmer. But that's actually not the case. So AI doesn't completely replace the coder, but rather supports the coder by acting as a co-pilot to streamline project development and make it easier. And it understands the context of our project that we're working on so that it can boost project development. So now that we've clarified what AI actually does, let's go over the tool that we're going to be using, which is called Windsurf. Part of the reason why we're using Windsurf is because it's a free tool, but it also has some high quality features, which include tab completion, natural language comments, and chat to explain and refactor code, all of which we're going to be going over in this introductory video. So in order to install Windsurf inside of VS Code, we can click on the Extensions tab here on the left-hand side and type in Windsurf inside the search bar. And then you can see this top result here saying Windsurf plugin, formerly Codium. And then if it looks like this, the logo and the name, then we know it's the correct one. It has over 3.7 million downloads as well. So we can click install and we can trust the publisher. And then it'll ask us to sign into Windsurf. And so then it'll open a new link in the browser. And here it's asking us to log in, as you can see here. However, we don't have an account yet, so we can just click sign up to create an account. Next, it'll ask you for your real name, email, and password. And then afterwards, you can click continue. And then you'll get a verification code sent to your email. Once you're done typing in that code, then you'll see that this profile page is open, showing that you've registered for a free account. Now we can go back to VS Code and click on this Windsurf login button here. And then it'll open a new link. And then if we go back to VS Code, you can see there's a new message that pops up here. And then we can select open. And then you can see that we're now officially logged in. So now that we're officially logged into Windsurf, we can now explore some of its features in more detail. So firstly, let's try out tab autocomplete. So Windsurf looks at what you type, looks at the rest of the code in your project, and tries to recommend code to you based on what you've already written. This tabbed autocomplete is unlimited and completely free, meaning we can leverage the power of it as much as we want to. So just to show this feature, let's say I wanted to create a function that'll help us find the area of a trapezoid. So let's say we can create a function by the name of trapezoid area. And then you can see it recommends to us parameters for the function as well as the code for the function and what it'll return. And so instead of having to type all of this out, we can just hit the tab button on our keyboard, and then you can see all of the gray code that was there before is now actually placed inside of our Python project. And so we can now test out this function just to prove that it really works. And you can see it's giving us some recommendations for testing the function here. And so if we run the Python code, you can see a trapezoid with 3 as the first base, 4 as the second base, and a height of 5 has an area of 17.5. So now let's look back at what the AI suggested us. So when we typed in this def trapezoid underscore area, it immediately came up with the parameters for the function as well as the return value of the function simply just based on the function name. So if your function name is descriptive enough, then it can actually recommend you most of the code, or all of the code in this case, for the function. And then it can even provide test cases for the function, like how it generated this print statement here. So it uses context clues in your code to determine what to suggest next. So the next feature we're going to go over that Windsurf provides for us is natural language comments. So you can write a Python comment, which we'll do as an example after we go over this. So we could write a Python comment describing what should happen in the code below it. And comments basically just serve as descriptions for what the code is doing. And after typing in the comment, the AI will suggest code to implement the functionality we described. So let's say I wanted to create a loop that iterated through and printed out all of the multiples of 3 from 1 to 100. So I could create a comment like so with this hashtag here. This hashtag character is meant to represent a comment. So this hashtag means that Python won't look at this line, but for others looking at your code, it's useful just to get a sense of what the code is doing. And so inside this comment, we're going to write what I want the loop to do. A loop that prints out all of the multiples of 3 from 1 to 100. And then now, as you can see, it's coming up with code for the loop. So we can use tab to accept the suggestion. And then we can keep doing it until all the code is given to us. And now, as you can see, firstly, it created a for loop, which iterates through the range of 1 to 100. And then it checks if I modulo 3, it's finding the remainder when I is divided by 3. And if that equals 0, which means it's a perfect multiple of 3, then I is printed out. So it prints out only the multiples of 3 from 1 to 100 because 101 is excluded. So if we were to run the Python code, you can see it works perfectly. It only prints out the multiples of 3, and it only goes from 1 to 100. However, what if we wanted to understand something that others have written, but we don't really know how to decipher the code ourselves? So we have this example here of code that we might not fully understand. So in order to get an explanation of it, we can select all of this code, right click, and then select Windsurf explain selected code block here. And then if we click on it, you can see in chat, it tells us that there's a function, getListRange. It takes a list as input, and two variables, max and min, are created with really small and large values. And then it iterates over each element here, which is what the for loop is for. And then it updates the max and min variables so that they actually represent the maximum and minimum values in the list. And then finally, it returns the difference between max and min so that it gets the range of a list of data values. So this explanation might seem not very useful in the simple use case here, but for more complex code, it can really be useful, especially if there are a lot of other functions inside the code base as well. And also, this function for getListRange looks pretty long right now. So what if we wanted to condense the getListRange function? Well, in this chat window, we can ask the AI, could you help me compress this function and make it smaller? And we might want to be more specific. So the getListRange function. And then if we were to send it, you can see it generates some code that is much shorter than what we have here. So as you can see, instead of going through a for loop, it just uses the built-in max and min functions, which get the maximum and minimum. And so it's what it says right here in this explanation too. And this is a more readable and much less resource intensive way of getting the list range, as we don't really need a loop anymore. So now we've seen that Windsurf is capable of a lot of different things. However, there are some limits to Windsurf, at least in the free tier that we're going to be using for this series. So firstly, the tab autocomplete, which we showed at the beginning of showing all these features, is unlimited. So no cost, and it's always available. No matter how much you use it, you can still keep on using it. However, the chat that we showed off, which can help us explain code and refactor code, it's not unlimited. It runs on a credit system, which is 25 free credits every month. So this is good for learning like what we're doing in this series, but for more intense, for more longer programming sessions, you could run out of these credits. However, you can still use the autocomplete if that happens. So it's not too bad if the chat runs out. So because of these limitations, it's probably recommended to use tab autocompletion for small changes to your code. However, for more complex parts of the code like debugging, that's what you should save your chat credits for, so that you can get the maximum use out of your chat credits while also not running out. So as a final challenge for this episode, try to use comments only to create a simple tip calculator. So type in the comments below, shown in the bullets here, and hit tab after typing each comment in order to accept the code that Windsurf recommends you. And only press tab to generate all the code that's not commented. The goal of this exercise is to show that for coding with an AI pair programmer, You no longer need to memorize all the different types of syntax in Python. You just need to know the steps to solve the problem that you want to solve and use AI to put those ideas into practice. This concludes episode 1 of the Python with AI series. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. And thank you very much for watching. And look out for episode 2 when it comes out soon.